Debris, exactly.
Debris, garbage. We just formed a union, Marysville Homeless Union. We got quite a few chapters through California, and we're just trying to unite the poor people and the homeless people that are just like us, that are homeless, because we're homeless also. And we put this together, and we're just trying to get the poor people to unite as far as everybody, right? I mean, everybody's pretty poor now. They've lost their place one way or the other, whether it be fire, whether it be excavators, bulldozers. They're all pretty much in the same spot. You want to kind of categorize us. We're all homeless, so they need to immediately do something, I feel.
I went out over to the fairgrounds in Marysville and helped walk dogs, clean cages, get cages prepared for the animals that were coming in. And now I'm here in Chico hoping I can do a little bit more. But it looks like they're just running people out of here, and I don't think that's right. It's like, where are they really? Some of them don't even know where they're going. And it's sad because it's like families, babies.
I feel like you're a family every time we walk up to anyone.
Yeah, every time I do. I
feel like you're family because I can relate. I mean, I've been homeless for 30 years, and so I got insight on what you got to be prepared for. And some of these people, you can tell, obviously, have no clue about if it gets any worse than what it is after they have to leave here and go out with nothing to eat, no clothes, no shelter. That's a daily object right there. These people, some of them, you can tell, just haven't ever had to do that, and they're scared to death. Being a veteran homewood as I am, and a homewoodette, we've got some things that if we come across the right people, anybody I could tell to be prepared to stand in line if you have to wait for resources, because the cities and the counties just either aren't set up, don't want to be set up, they just aren't set up for anything of magnitude of this size of what's happened. And I can't help to say, a lot of reasons why this has happened, I think, has got to do with the timing of the Lord, the timing of the union, the Poor People's Campaign, everybody uniting together, because the government in which we all live is not working.
We want to know if there has been a separation between a new homeless person from the fire and an existing homeless. Yes, that's true. They separated a lot of the regular homeless into a separate camp in the parking lot. And even if they were from Paradise, okay? And honestly, Paradise has done that to themselves, too. They want to be separated from the regular homeless because they don't want the stereotype to be they're homeless. All right. Well, how does homeless really happen? I mean, honestly, how do you become homeless? Well, you lose your job, you lose your money, you lose your house. Right. Well, all these people have done that. Most of them that were working in Paradise, there's over 300 shops gone. Well, if you had 5 employees at 300, you do the math. It's not that hard. Yeah, right. They don't have any jobs. Their houses are burnt. They're now homeless. But they don't want to be considered homeless. I don't have any money. All right? No money, no house, no nothing. No job, no money, no house. Sure. It's just that simple. So that's how you become homeless. Yeah. They're homeless, but they don't want to actually acknowledge, well, we're homeless. Right. The stigmatism of homeless isn't about being an addict. It's about not having a livable wage so you can afford a livable house. That's the dilemma on homeless. That's the real beast. Yeah, right. Okay? It's about not having a livable wage and not having a livable house. That's it.
I think the first thing that I wish everyone in America knew is that you can be homeless tomorrow. I don't care if you are a CEO. Like, my dad is a truck driver. He's been hauling rice in the valley for almost 30 years. Bought his house with a check when he moved up here when I was a baby. Like, a very fiscally responsible man. My mom worked most of my life. She just retired recently. And now they're homeless. They did everything right according to the American story of being responsible and working hard and being frugal and prudent. They've always lived within their means. I'm very proud of them for that. Like, they've taken all the right steps, and now they're homeless, and there's not an option for them. Anyone can be homeless tomorrow. You're a wildfire away. You're a missed car payment away from not having a place to live. what I worry about with Paradise in particular is that a lot of folks up there have had this narrative taught to them that homelessness is a personal choice, or it's a personal failing. It's that you're insufficient to meet your own needs, you're lazy or whatever. And now that a lot of folks who have that ideology they've been raised with, now they are homeless. I see that breaking one of two ways. First, it could be that there's this revelation that actually I didn't deserve to be homeless. A fire burned in my town, or my parents got sick, or my housing situation fell through for one reason or another. Not everyone who's homeless deserves to be homeless or wants to be homeless. That's a simple fact, and I hope that this event allows Butte County and the surrounding regions to understand that fact. What I fear might happen from a mental health perspective is that this narrative about homelessness is actually so deep in people that there's going to be a lot of shame that comes out of this about why have I, it's been 6 months, I still don't have a place to live. Why am I failing? Why am I not good enough to have a place to live? Have I not worked hard enough? Am I not smart enough? Other people have houses. I'm insufficient. And that's, from a mental health perspective, that creates a great amount of internal suffering. The first thing that I pray that people get away from this is that you can be homeless tomorrow, like anyone, it can happen to anybody. And that should inform the way that we deal with homelessness as a systemic problem. Paradise, what's left of it, we'll talk about rebuilding. Most people aren't going to have that as an option because they're going to have to go where they can find work and a place to sleep. So they're not going to stay in Butte County unless there's a change, an immediate change. The folks who are going to profit from this are wealthy land developers who buy up large portions of cheap property and develop it. This was already happening actually before the fire. One of the largest shopping complexes in town was owned by a firm in New York City. I don't even know if I assume that folks have even actually been to Paradise and know what it's like, but it's compared with, property rates in other parts of the country, it's a vulnerable community already to start with, and now it's even more vulnerable to exploitation.
Disgraceful to me. There's nobody here really to help them. They take these donations, throw them in the ground, and leave. I mean, look at this. This is going to be a lot of garbage. A lot of garbage. And what are they going to do with it? I suggest that, I don't know, donate it to the people that really need it down in the river bottoms. There is homeless been around forever, and they'll be around for a long time.
Well, they'll be around for a while, but we're determined to put an end to homelessness.
Yeah, we don't want to breed homelessness.
That's right.
No, we just want to educate it.
Right.
We want to educate the prior. We don't want to. We can't. It's hard to fix their response of trying to do it over time. We do need to fix it immediately, but we need to do like cancer. We can't cure it, but we can sure prevent it. From now on until then, as far as knowledge goes, the more information we have and they have, the better odds we get if we can get the right data. If we get the right data, we can just about figure out anything, because nothing's infinite that I know of within the stars. But we should be able to figure something out given a finite number of people, agencies, organizations. We can come up with a solution. The immediate response, I put a system together, and it's the Homeless Money Direct. This is something that's direct. These people, the agencies that are helping, they don't seem to understand what direct is. Direct is not 2 years from now. Direct is as direct as you got that money to give me. That's us. That's give it to me and let's do that. Let's put it out there one at a time. I'll do that and get you off the street. Then we have a little time to get a shower, get a good meal, and we can talk about what's going on.
a large portion of the population in Paradise are elderly and retired. It's also a very poor community. Paradise has a poverty rate of about 19%, as far as I know. And there's a lot of chronic health issues. There's a lot of COPD, diabetes. There's, drug use problems, schizophrenia, like mental health, physical health needs are rampant. There's going to be, 25,000 folks who need to be housed now. And before the fire, Butte County already had a vacancy rate of about 1.5%, right? So I think that works out to about 2,000 shelters, right? 2,000 to 3,000 shelters. So even before the fire happened, there's a housing crisis in Chico, and it was recently declared a housing crisis by Chico City Council. We didn't have enough places for people to start before the fire happened. So now we have this huge influx of elderly, poor, sick folks who need a place to stay. People could die. Like, this is life and death. This was already a tremendous problem to start with, and now it's just got 10 times worse in Butte County in particular. And I know Poor People's Campaign and other advocates throughout the state have really been pushing the housing issue hard for a long time. And I was grateful before, but now I'm personally grateful because my parents are going to need a house.
Oh my gosh, I so appreciate the fact that there are people that are rallying, others that are understanding.
Yeah,
It's so cool.
Yeah, well, thank you. What's your name?
My name's Alex.
Alex?
Yeah,
Hi,
nice to
Brian.
meet you, Brian.
Nice to meet you. That's Anthony Prince.
Hi, what was your name?
That's Stan Eckstein.
Hi, Stan. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, these are members also. So
Super
we're here
cool.
just to help out with you guys and just to make sure everything's going the way that it needs to, and find out exactly if the system's working or if it ain't.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I'm really glad. I'd really like to pick your brain. So kind of what I'm trying to do is encourage people and let them know, like, we're all human beings. We all deserve shelter. We all deserve food. We all deserve water. We have natural medicine here. We, as human beings, we all need this stuff. And they need to, know, I think that they're just terrified and have such low self-worth and have all this going on that it's like, please, just let me hug you. I will put you in my own vehicle and get you somewhere.
You are right.
So what would it look like if you guys were to, I've been getting down and talking with people, like I said, everybody here is human. Everybody deserves to be in shelter and have food and water and dignity and love, and there is nobody that is better than anybody. And at this point in time, it's like, okay, you guys are worried about some fork sorters? How about some shelter? Can we talk about the problem here?
There still seems to be quite a huge segregation gap.
Yeah, right.
The gap in between of well, I'm only temporary homeless. Well, unfortunately, and if that's the case, that's absolutely amazing. That's wonderful. But unfortunately, sometimes it takes a little longer than you expect to get back up on those feet, and we haven't quite seen the effects of that yet.
Sure. Because
everybody's been so guarded by FEMA and helped out by FEMA. I'm nervous to see what happens when they leave and that little crutch is gone. Mm-hmm. Because right now everybody's leaning on that crutch, and it's going to be interesting to see how things change in the next couple months. Sure. We got to think, though, that it wasn't just homeowners and renters that were in those fires. Sure. There's a large level of homeless themselves in Paradise that that's just an easier place to hide because there's not so many. It's not such a city-oriented town. There's woods, and people, they camp. They literally camp, and we can't forget about them.
Yeah,
they didn't have anything when they left, but they lost what they did have, and that means something too.
Yeah.
I think that the union is going to be a interesting, but a helpful, a very helpful tool to get people to open their eyes. I think people who haven't been represented are finally going to realize that they're worth being represented. Sure. The self-esteem and the level of self-worth out here just diminishes like the degrees in the weather, and quickly. And to have someone just to be there to say, hey, you know what, I got your back, it does tremendous things for someone's spirit. And I think that that'll change a lot. It's as long as we can get people not to just crutch it. I'm praying that people will embrace it instead of crutch it.
When I heard about Poor People's Campaign, for me it was like, this is the thing I've been waiting for my whole life. It's for somebody to come up and say, hey, this is morally wrong. We have failed our people. And that the poor are exploited. Because I saw it. I saw it in my clients. I saw it in my town. And I saw it, in all these areas of my life, that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And it's an ancient story. And it just felt like there's nothing to be done about it, That was the status quo. And that's the way it's always been. And then this happened. It's like, there's nothing left. So, but what I was talking with my parents about is that this is like, the silver lining here is that the situation is dynamic now. They were saying that, my mom saying, we liked our house, we loved our place, and I don't know where we're going to go now, but before, we were just going to live out the rest of our lives there and just kind of stagnate and wait to die, in our little plot of land. Which, it might have been nice, but now we have to change. We can't continue living the way that we were, and it feels, in a weird way, hopeful that something new could happen, and that change is possible now. And it could be bad, but it could be really good. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
Thanks for watching From These Ashes, a new movement is rising. Part of Free Speech TV's viewer-supported, ongoing coverage of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. This story is personal for me, as I have spent time with and have come to know, love, and respect Brian, Raylyn, Greg, and others in the California Homeless Union. Their tireless work continues today, from Marysville and Chico to Salinas and the East Bay. Their story of heartbreaking loss and uplifting action is emblematic of what's happening across our country. Regardless of one's politics, it's immoral that in the richest country in the history of the world, 140 million people live in poverty or lack sufficient food, shelter, or health care. That's 43% of us, mostly white, but disproportionately women, children, and people of color. Meanwhile, the rich get richer and the war machine rolls on. It doesn't have to be this way, which is why the Poor People's Campaign is building a multi-year, multiracial, intergenerational, interfaith, and intersectional movement to end systemic poverty, racism, ecological devastation, and the war economy. Want to know more? For a one-time gift to Free Speech TV of at least $100 or a monthly gift of at least $10, we would love to send you a copy of the book Revive Us Again, Vision and Action in Moral Organizing, written by Poor People's Campaign co-chairs, the Reverend Drs. William Barber and Liz Theo Harris, along with Reverend Dr. Rick Lowry. This powerful collection of sermons and speeches lays out a groundbreaking vision for intersectional organizing, paired with practical essays for building a fusion movement from activists in today's Poor People's Campaign. One of the goals of the Poor People's Campaign is to change this country's distorted moral narrative as propagated in the corporate media. Your support helps Free Speech TV lift up the stories of those most impacted and amplify the songs from the front lines of justice. As a nonprofit, non-commercial, independent network, we cannot do this alone. You are our lifeblood. Please do your part by calling now at 877-378-8669 or donating online at freespeech.org. First-time gifts of any size are especially meaningful to us because they tell us you are out there and that our work matters. Monthly gifts, in particular, help us scale up our efforts during these unsettling times. Please give what you can, but please give. Thank you for keeping your network on the air 24/7 across the nation. Together, we will make a difference. Forward together, not one step back.
Trump's address reminded us of the threat that this administration poses to democracy and justice. But the truth is, we've won some key battles together. Last year, we won privacy rights at the Supreme Court case Carpenter versus the United States. Net neutrality gained congressional support, bringing us one step closer to restoring a fair and free internet. We forced Trump to reverse his family separation policy and held the administration accountable for each and every family it tore apart. And even as the president acknowledged, we made huge strides in criminal justice reform with the passage of the First Step Act. Now, thousands of people who've served unjust sentences will face a fairer system. You helped make these victories possible. We're gearing up for more critical, long-term battles this year, so we need you with us. Commit to a monthly gift that will sustain Free Speech TV's work in 2019 and beyond. Month by month, your dedication allows us to better plan our programs, keep our bills paid, and hire staff for better journalism. And that, importantly, gives us peace of mind. Despite the pressures of funding, with your monthly contributions, Free Speech TV could be on solid footing. We can't do this work without you. We're asking you out there to please call now and sign up for an automatic donation of $20 for 20 months. If you want independent progressive media to thrive, please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org to set up a $20 monthly contribution.
My message is the following. Just in the past couple of weeks, I discovered Free Speech TV. I have hardly changed the dial on my TV since. I think this is programming that everyone in this country needs to know is out there. I'm just amazed at the quality of program that you have and just wanted to tell you thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara from Texas, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to hear news from a different point of view.
Hello, I'm Emilio Estevez. Free Speech TV is fiercely independent, and we rely on your support to keep us that way. Your contributions allow us to continue to provide uncompromising news and stories for future generations. Please donate today. Call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org.
There are millions of poor people in this country who have very little or even nothing to lose.
The people at the bottom and the middle class, we're so close. We're one or two paychecks away from being in the same position.
And if all of these people are poor, then there must be somebody getting rich off of them. And if there's a system in place like that, why aren't the people coming together?
The Poor
Poor People's Campaign starts with this really huge demand that we need to end systemic racism, poverty, militarism, and ecological devastation. And that's the demand. We will be done, we will have achieved our goals when all those things are eradicated.
There are millions of poor people in this country who have very little or even nothing to lose. They can be helped to take action together. They will do so with a freedom and a power that will be a new and unsettling force in our complacent national life.
We will be saying, here we are, and we're in lots of places, and we're able to move together.
Disciplined commitment, a deep commitment to nonviolence. Being a biracial, Latina, young person, growing up in Texas, I couldn't help but be conscious that there were plenty of things that were not fair and that we needed to fix. Everything about our society right now and the systems of power in our society is rooted around using violence as power. Do I work on racial justice? Do I work on economic justice, gender justice? None of them feel like enough. And so when I heard about the Poor People's Campaign, it finally felt like something where I could work at the intersections of all of those things in a holistic way.
The 40 days of action will be simultaneous, coordinated period of people standing up and moving out in state capitals across the country and Washington, D.C.
And we went to this church. It was a very big place, what have you. There was registration going on, and the lady who was registering me, she had this really cute fro, and I was just starting my dreads, and she had this baby on her hip, and she's like, "Hey, it's so good to see you. We're so happy to see you." I first heard about the Poor People's Campaign when I met a friend, and she says, "Hey, they're doing this truth commission." I says, "Okay, fine, I'll go." And when I came into the little meeting room, they're like, "Oh, you want to share something?" I says, "Okay, sure." And I sat down and I watched.
It's difficult living like paycheck to paycheck. It's really not enough.
I know what it's like when you cannot maintain what you want to do for your children.
And then I heard my story being told from multiple people. Different colors, different genders. And so it really warmed me up when I got up there to share my truth.
So, my name is Victoria Geit. Today I wanted to talk to you about the job I just had.
And it wasn't just what the campaign did that drew me in, it was how they campaigned. They were very thoughtful. Very thoughtful, I would say. I'm the kind of person that if I don't have money somewhere, I will tell you I'm sick. I used to be very ashamed that way. And with the Poor People's Campaign, it was like, "Hey, I noticed you don't have a car. Do you want to ride?"
We're going to get started in just a moment, but I know...
I went to the first day of action in Albany. When we got there, we were greeted with food. We were greeted with, kind words. I grew up in an activist family. They had been activists since coming to this country in the 1910s. My great-grandmother and my great-aunt were in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, and they survived it. And because of that experience, they became union organizers and communists, and they fought to have people have workers' rights, and this sentiment went throughout my family for generations. Any victory that we have, if we're not teaching younger people to sustain it and to keep on pushing, then we lose ground. All of a sudden, my daughter doesn't have the same reproductive freedom I have. And so I think that we've gone backwards in a lot of ways because we didn't keep pushing and fighting and maintaining.
And everybody was really pumped. Like, everybody was really excited.
It was really exciting to see how many people showed up and were enthusiastic to do this action and risk arrest.
So our rally is going to be right here at the opposite side of the park from...
I got involved with the Poor People's Campaign by just attending a local community meeting, and then people reached out to me and invited me to speak first at another community meeting and then to be on the coordinating committee. So when we got to week 1, I had come so far to even be one of the action leads for that day.
All right, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. So it's gone on far too long. And oh, we when this light turns, about half of those that are not getting arrested.
It was definitely the biggest action that I had organized or that we had organized, with way more potential arrests than anything that I'd been involved in. I spent some time in Palestine in the West Bank with a group called Christian Peacemaker Teams. I was based in Hebron for a couple of months. The violence is so dramatic and disturbing, and really was kind of provoked a spiritual crisis. How do people make sense of just real tragedy and evil? I think the Christian story has a lot to say about that.
We had a crisis of militarization.
The first action was very exciting, but also very stressful, because we really didn't know what was going to happen.
All of our brothers, all of our people, all of our people.
Every single day, our African American men or male transgenders are sexually harassed.
That's right. Somebody's hurting our people, so let's get into this. Somebody's hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long.
A lot of children are going to their bed hungry. Our brothers and sisters are sleeping on the street.
It's a choice between medicine and living, and it's not nice, it is not fair, and I am sick of this.
The reason that we deal with poverty is because of a failure to invest in the things that people with disabilities and all people need to live decent lives.
Porque si el policía me para,
Because if I'm stopped by a cop,
va a deportarme y separarme de mis hijos.
I can be deported and separated from my children.
This is about us, about the people, as we stand united, one voice for one cause.
I may not be gay. I may not be an immigrant. I may not be a person of color, but we are all experiencing certain pressures, and we're able to look at each other with compassion and humanity.
After the speakers, we started to march towards an intersection. And I remember there were people singing on all of the street corners.
We had this song, I believe it was I Am Not Afraid. And so all of us were walking down the sidewalk singing, I am not afraid, I know what I was made for. I was moved and I felt vulnerable, and yet able to stand in a fearlessness because I was standing in community.
The fact that people kind of for the first time were ready to walk out in the street and stay there and kind of an uncomfortable at times standoff with buses and cars and the cops.
It was everybody, you know, no matter how scared we were, everybody was there.
We demand guaranteed annual incomes, full employment, and the right for all workers to form and join unions. We can't go down this road no more. We can't go down this road.
And News 10 ABC Samantha Damasio is with the demonstrators with details on their cause tonight. Sam.
Tennessee's Poor People Campaign
inside the California State Capitol Rotunda.
20 protesters with the Poor People's Campaign of Indiana.
The Poor People's Campaign today in Frankfurt.
Poor People's Campaign was launched in Olympia.
I like the spirit of the Poor People's Campaign because it's involving like people from all walks of life.
When we get to the Capitol, we're going to make sure that our message gets heard, that businesses...
This period is partly about exposing the crisis that we're in. There's this great quote from Martin Luther King.
There is nothing wrong with the traffic law which says you have to stop for a red light. But when a man is bleeding to death, the ambulance goes through those red lights at top speed.
And metaphorically, this is a moment where we need to rush to get medical attention, that things are at such a critical point and a breaking point.
Disinherited people all over the world are bleeding to death from deep social and economic wounds. They need brigades of ambulance drivers who will have to ignore the red lights of the present system until the emergency is solved.
We were trying to block the entire Capitol so that people couldn't get in or out.
So we're going to sit down for all the people that are being pushed down.
The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, is not perfect, but it's a whole bunch of imperfect people who are some of the most tenacious, determined, brilliant people that I've met coming together, determined to figure out a new way to undo all of these issues together.
It was pretty shocking to go from this very sort of trying to not confront us to suddenly a cop is like throwing somebody against a wall. It was very startling to see that happen. But we were very clear we were going to maintain our discipline and our plan in the face of whatever response we got. The mayor was very upset, spoke out against us.
But, you know, this really disrupts the lives of working people who are just trying to get by and who are living paycheck to paycheck.
The news media definitely didn't understand what we were doing, but it's hard to break through that, which is why we have to make our own media. Today's theme is on militarism, the war economy, and the proliferation of gun violence. So we are going to be going to the war room in the Capitol. This is a room in our state capitol that is covered in murals depicting all of
of the wars that New Yorkers have fought in, including the colonial wars of conquest against our indigenous people.
I signed up for the military to pay for school.
I received the Army ROTC scholarship to go to college and had deployment orders as soon as I graduated. So I immediately deployed to Afghanistan, fighting for freedom and fighting for what's right. You know, you grow up believing the story that we're always the good guys at the end of the day. And when I got to Afghanistan, I, through a series of experiences, realized that in many cases we were not the good guys.
I met people who were blown up weeks later because they met with me. I was one of the lucky ones. I have all my limbs.
So when I came back from my deployment, I had a really difficult time transitioning. I signed a contract when I was 18 that I wouldn't be free of until I was 30.
Trouble been brewing 10,000 years.
I've been living in the Albany area and go to many, many demonstrations and protests. And the actions that we had really felt different.
Well, the fourth week of the protest by the Poor People's Campaign ends with at least a dozen arrests. Today, the rally at the state capitol is focused on health care and clean drinking water.
The campaign has a vision of building a movement from the bottom up. A whole community and network of leaders.
I came from poverty, and I am in so much student loan debt to get out of poverty.
Well, I'm over 65, so of course I'm very concerned about health care that is affordable.
Kids in my community have asthma at disproportionate rates.
My little sister, she's 7 years old and she has asthma. She's a good girl, and asthma is, I feel like it's taking away her advantage of learning and being adventurous as she can. Being a low-income family is really hard in America because many people are losing their health cares, especially being a refugee and immigrant.
I think this is going to be a really good action today because, as usual, we are speaking truth to power, and we are going to be where decisions, often bad decisions or no decisions, are made. In other words, our state legislature.
We demand a ban on all new pipelines.
In every state, single-payer universal health care for all.
State police didn't like what happened last week, and they may be more on edge based on what they believe happened last week.
We demand health care, education, jobs, infrastructure, and welfare for the poor. We demand decent, safe. For my grandchildren.
Me and a friend of mine, he came with me. Come on, we're gonna go to Washington. We're gonna go rally. Come on, come with. It was a long ride. And then we finally got to Washington.
I'm Derek. I'm from Buffalo as well. This is my first time in D.C.
We're from upstate New York, Saratoga Springs.
All right, Poor People's Campaign right here, coming up right here.
Hi, I'm Mike Carter. I'm from Quincy, Mass.
I'm from North Carolina via Boston.
Forward together, not one step back.
I'm Heidi Thornley. I'm from Lansing, Michigan.
Hi, I'm Susan Haddix from Berea, Kentucky. And I'm from Williamstown, Massachusetts.
Timothy Dublin. I'm from Brooklyn.
I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I was in the Army.
Seeing all those people from the different states, that made me feel really happy and hopeful.
We have folks coming from South Carolina to Michigan, New York, all across Pennsylvania, from Kentucky, Vermont, North Carolina, Maryland.
So just follow the people with the yellow shirts. They're going to be pointing us towards the metro stop.
Kirk led us down this subway, and I remember being just fascinated. Oh, wow, how come our subways don't look like this? This is really nice.
Poor People's Campaign.
And there was a big stage, and a bunch of people were speaking.
It is unjust, immoral, and unnecessary to have millions of poor people in this land. We need a poor people's campaign. So we are building one.
We are here to put a face on the facts of poverty. We are here of every race, every color, every creed, every income, every faith tradition, especially the poor, coming together, declaring that we must have a poor people's not march, a poor people not rally, but a poor people's campaign to save the very heart and the soul of this nation. Because I think it's time for a revolution.
Wow, you guys are beautiful. You're making me cry, honestly. But did you know that there are 140 million people who are poor or low income in the United States of America?
We work the tomato fields, apple, peach, and orange orchards.
But I came to tell you that Kentucky needs some help.
A lot of us many of the workers there, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and we shouldn't have to.
I was so ashamed of myself because I knew it was all my fault. I don't know how many times I've tried to kill myself, but I was too broke to overdose. I would still believe it was all my fault if it weren't for the people in this movement who helped teach me to see the system for what it truly is and what it does to poor people.
Oh, yeah. I went to jail in 69, and I went to jail in June 2018.
2018.
2018. And I didn't mind going to jail.
All of these people that they brought up, they weren't like trained speakers. They were just regular people, just telling their truth, telling our truth, really.
My name is Brittany Ramos de Barros. I'm black, I'm queer, and I'm a combat veteran.
It really brings it home, and you can feel the nastiness that these people have gone through because you've been there. And you know it too well.
These wars are immoral. Profiting off of killing is immoral. It is time to stand up, and we won't be silent anymore.
But this is why you have to let the impacted people have the stage.
WLRI, we got the power, 'cause we are.
Don't get it twisted. We are not the left. We are not the right. We are not the conservative. We are not the liberal, because those phrases are too puny and too weak and too limited. We are the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival, and we won't be silent anymore.
right now, the goal is that, we're really going to have this structure that has deep roots in lots of communities, that crosses those divides that we're in, and that we're identifying and building up people who are going to be able to then take action together in really powerful ways.
It is so exciting to be here with you all and then get to do brainstorming and discussion and planning together about our next steps.
I think every single one of us has the ability to be leaders, and that if every single one of us holds this campaign with ownership as leaders, then that's the way that we're really going to get to a place of fundamental transformational change in our society. And I think that that's possible. And I think that if we believe it's possible, that's the thing that makes it possible.
I absolutely plan to keep working with the Poor People's Campaign. This year has been very good. I am already involved in the Western New York Steering Committee, and I hope to get even farther into it. I love this campaign. I love the people we have, and then these are my partners. These are my people.
And so I'm going to invite people to share their stories.
So I'm one of those people that doesn't speak, so here I go. I'm gay, I'm sober, I've had a mental health diagnosis, I'm Quaker, I'm poor. I was arrested on the final day of action in a group wearing t-shirts that read, "We'll be back." And I'm glad that we're all here so that we can make good on that promise.
So when I first started going for this 40 days of action, I was really uncomfortable because I felt like I had no right to be there. And a lot of that, I think, comes from this deep ingrained feeling of being ashamed for being poor. But the more I kept going to more rallies, and I went to the trainings, it was very, very humanizing, and it was nice to see everybody else drop that awful little bit of shame that was not ours. Just breaking that shame that's put on us, throughout society. If you don't have a job, I think that's a really, really big step.
And what I like about the Poor People Campaign is it covers everything I'm interested in, because I can't do well when I worry about my children or my students, or the fact that my paycheck is the one that keeps my family out of poverty, and if something happened to me health-wise, that's it, my family's in poverty. I definitely intend on continuing working with the Poor People's Campaign. I think it's probably the single biggest campaign, because it is inclusive, that could happen right now.
The goal is that we're building something that can really force some changes at the state level, and then of course be part of a national movement that can force things to happen beyond New York.
There are people in this campaign who are dead-ass serious about what they believe in, and they will go to bat for you. And they mean it. They're not being paid to be there. That's the thing about it. Nobody's being paid to be there. They mean it. They're here because something's wrong and they need help. And together we might be able to do some helping.
WLRI LP Gap, Pennsylvania.
From Cape
KPFK Pacifica Radio in Los Angeles. This is Rising Up with Sonali, and I'm your host, Sonali Kolhatkar. Free Speech TV is wrapping up its pledge drive. We have just a few more days left in the pledge drive. And today, before we go to our rest of our show, I want to just tell you a little bit about the incredible thank you gifts that we have set up for you. All you have to do during this hour to support Free Speech TV is call us at 877-378-8669. That's 877-378-8669, or go online to freespeech.org and make any level of donation that makes sense for you. But if you would like to give us $20, we'd love to send you a beautiful bumper sticker that has the Rising Up with Sonali logo on it. If you'd like to up that pledge to $40, we'd love to send you our tote bag. There are very limited numbers of these tote bags left, by the way. This may be potentially the last fund drive that we offer these. They're red and white tote bag. It has a beautiful zippered pocket so that you can, keep things safely if you're taking it to the beach. It has the words "Don't Mourn, Organize," and an image, a woodcut image of three fists rising into the air, plus our logo on it. That's a $40 pledge for the tote bag. For a $60 pledge, we'd love to send you this poster print by Mark Bryan. He's a California-based artist who does incredible surrealistic political art. And in this particular painting, he imagines what President Trump's military parade would look like. And as you can see, it's very, very beautiful and very dark and very detailed. You could spend a long time examining every detail of this painting. You can see the little sheep that are gathered right below Trump to watch the parade. And of course, he has his finger on the red nuclear button and his phone nearby where he can tweet and sending off tweets into the air alongside jet planes. It's a beautiful poster, and that is available for a $60 pledge at 877-378-8669. Or if you would like to get some of the other thank you gifts that we have available for you, we have featured a number of books during this pledge drive, and my favorite book is Murder Incorporated, Empire, Genocide, and Manifest Destiny, America's Favorite Pastime. It's actually part 2 of a 3-book series by Mumia Abu-Jamal, the award-winning journalist and the political prisoner, together with the award-winning filmmaker Stephen Vittoria. The two of them have this 3-book series in the works. Parts 1 and 2 are out. Part 2 just came out. You might remember interviews that we've done with Stephen Vittoria about this book. So you can get this book for a $100 pledge, which is actually not a very large amount because it's a hefty book, nearly 500 pages long, encompassing U.S. foreign policy, encompassing CIA interventions and the instability that the U.S. has fomented in democracies around the world for decades. If you would like books 1 and 2, you can get them together for a pledge of $150. Book 1 is subtitled Dreaming of Empire, and it covers the origins of the United States, the institution of slavery, the genocide of Native Americans, and all of the aspects of American history that's often rewritten in triumphalist terms in our American history textbooks, but told in a much more honest fashion in this book by Mumia Abu-Jamal and Stephen Vittoria. Books 1 and 2 available together for a pledge of only $150. That's Murder Incorporated, Empire, Genocide, and Manifest Destiny. Or for a pledge of $20 a month, you can get all these thank you gifts, 5 gifts for a pledge of $240. You get the 2 books, the tote bag, the bumper sticker, and the poster. That phone number to call again is 877-378-8669, or go online to freespeech.org. It's a $240 pledge for all 5 thank you gifts. If you love Free Speech TV, now's your chance to show that love, because we don't get funding from corporate sponsors. You don't see commercials on Free Speech TV. It's something that is a point of pride, right? Because we rely on viewers just like you to make these fund drives successful and to pay the bills. And if you're not coming through, then there is no Free Speech TV. And so it's absolutely incumbent on every single one of you who enjoys Free Speech TV to make the donation that you can afford, right? We expect you to give what makes sense to you. So if you can only pledge $20, then go for it. Or $20 a month, gives you, all 5 thank you gifts. That's $240 pledge. So every sort of level in between. And if there's somebody out there that can make $1,000 donation and you don't want thank you gifts, just go to freespeech.org or call 877-378-8669 and make $1,000 contribution just because you care about Free Speech TV and you want this program and other programs on here to be available and accessible to people around the country for a long time to come. That's what you do with your donation, is you make this program possible to continue, and you make it possible for this TV outlet to continue, and providing a platform for fiercely progressive views. The 2020 election season has started extremely early, and that's not a surprise given the despairing 2 years that we have had of this current president. Free Speech TV has plans to cover this presidential election. We've already been covering it on this show. You've already heard critical commentary on the Democratic candidates. You've already heard analysis of the various political campaigns, and we are going to be bringing so much more to you in the coming year and a half. And so if you're counting on Free Speech TV to give you that unbiased, fiercely progressive, truthful, reality-based programming that's free of both the corporate spin that you get in major corporate media outlets and free of the political spin that you get in outlets like Fox News, then you should turn to Free Speech TV and especially fund Free Speech TV. Make it financially possible for us to continue doing the work that we do. Again, that phone number is 877-378-8669, or you can go online to freespeech.org. We've got a wonderful show ready for you after this break, but in the last 2 minutes of this first part of the show, I just want to urge you, we want to get those donations rolling in early in the program, early in the hour, to build that momentum so that we can raise as much money as possible during this hour. Again, that number is 877-378-8669. Let me go through one more time the thank you gifts that we have available for you. Starting from the smallest donation level, $20 pledge to Free Speech TV gets you this beautiful bumper sticker. Or for $40 pledge, you can get the tote bag, the Rising Up with Sonali tote bag. $60 pledge gets you the Mark Bryan poster print. $100 pledge gets you Murder Incorporated, Empire, Genocide, and Manifest Destiny, America's Favorite Pastime. It's part 2 of a 3-part book series by Mumia Abu-Jamal and Stephen Vittoria. Or for a $150 pledge, you can get books 1 and 2. For a $240 pledge, get every single gift that we are offering. The 2 books, the tote bag, the bumper sticker, and the poster print. You can break it up into monthly installments of just $20. That is less than $1 a day to Free Speech TV. One more minute left before we go to break. Keep those calls coming in at 877-378-8669. That's 877-378-8669. Every contribution we get during this hour is a show of support for Rising Up with Sonali. It's a message to Free Speech TV and the people who run it that they made the right choice in bringing this program on the air. We're so excited about the coverage that we have planned for you in the coming weeks, months, and years. And that is made possible only because people like you call and contribute. 877-378-8669 is our number, or you can go online to freespeech.org. Every single donation counts. Every single donation helps us get closer and closer to that goal. The donations have been coming fast, but they need to come in faster because we want to wrap up the pledge drive. So keep those calls coming in, or go online to freespeech.org. You can make a cash donation without a thank you gift, or you can make a donation and pick from any number of thank you gifts on the website, or simply call 877-378-8669. Tell them how much you want to donate and ask them to give you the rundown of thank you gifts that are available. If you even want a thank you gift, maybe you don't want a gift because Free Speech TV is gift enough. With that, we'll be back after this short break.
Did you know that Pride started as a riot? It was 50 years ago this June when trans women, drag kings and queens, and gay men fought back against police brutality in New York City's Stonewall Inn. And despite historic progress, LGBTQ rights are still under attack. Free Speech TV is proud to amplify the voices of LGBTQ people nationwide with programs like Gay USA and Translash from Amara Jones. Will you stand with us and show your pride in Free Speech TV with a donation today? You can donate at 877-378-8669 or online at freespeech.org.
From KPFK Pacifica Radio, this is Rising Up with Sonali, and I'm your host, Sonali Kolhatkar. You can watch this program on Free Speech TV and listen to it on Pacifica radio stations and affiliates nationwide. As President Trump, during his recent visit to Normandy, France, enjoyed his photo ops with military veterans, news reports did not mention his recent plan to pardon U.S. service members that have been convicted of war crimes. Indeed, Trump appears to have backed off, at least temporarily, from pardoning several people whose conduct in the Iraq or Afghanistan wars of the past 2 decades was so egregious that even vets and the military establishment were aghast. But perhaps we shouldn't be surprised in the least, given Trump's tenuous relationships to laws and morality. After all, he himself faces the strong likelihood of criminal prosecution after leaving office. We turn to Rebecca Gordon. She's the author of Mainstreaming Torture, Ethical Approaches in the Post-9/11 United States. She teaches in the philosophy department at the University of San Francisco and is a member of the War Times Tiempo de Guerras collective. Her latest piece was published by Tom Dispatch entitled Clemency for the Lowly, Free Passes for the Mighty. Welcome to the program, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So where do you think this idea even originated? Some have suggested that it was essentially a Fox News host that suggested or advised Trump to do this sort of thing, to pardon war criminals. It seems that Fox News is now, has been for the last 2 years, shaping American presidential policy.
That would appear to be the case. It does seem to be the major place where President Trump learns anything about what is actually happening in the world. And to me, it's particularly ironic that he would choose to support the troops by offering to pardon, and in one case, actually pardoning already a military figure who has been convicted of a war crime. And I suspect that people, and in fact, I know because I teach a course at the University of San Francisco in war, torture, and terrorism, which is taken both by members of Reserve Officer Training Corps and also veterans, and they are all very clear that they do not feel supported when anybody in government suggests that they should not abide by the Geneva Conventions and the other rules and laws of war. Rather, the opposite. They take great pride in the fact that part of what their military culture is the observation of these rules and these laws. So, yes, I think the idea came from Fox. I think that Trump loves it, especially because although he himself never actually served in the military, and as he one time said, I believe to Howard Stern, that his Vietnam was gonorrhea. Nonetheless, he loves to surround himself with military people and warmongers, and I think he likes to feel that the soldiers love him.
Right.
So, yes.
So let's talk about Michael Bahana, who is the one soldier that Trump has already pardoned, just to give us an idea of the kind of people that Trump wants to use his presidential pardon power for. He basically has the highest power in the nation to do what he's doing. So who is this vet, Michael Bahana?
Michael Bahana was convicted in 2009 of murdering an Iraqi prisoner. This man was named Ali Mansour Mohammed, and he was suspected of being someone who was creating these what were called IEDs, improvised explosive devices, and he was accused of being someone who had been involved in that. He was captured by the U.S. military and interrogated, but they decided in the end that he would be released. And so he was supposed to take him home, Bahana was, but what Bahana did instead was he took him to a secluded area, he stripped him naked, and he shot him dead, and then later claimed that he did this because he was under attack by a naked man who had made a lunge for his gun. So now Bahana has a presidential pardon, and as I said in my article, Ali Mansour Mohammed is still dead.
Wow. Eddie Gallagher is another vet that Trump has considered a pardon for. He even tweeted about him. He's a former Navy SEAL. I mean, he's basically announced that he would be moved to a less restrictive confinement while he awaits his day in court. Who's Eddie Gallagher? And I understand that Trump hasn't pardoned him and has sort of suggested that he wants the trials to proceed.
Okay, so this is a case that has become even more complex since I wrote the article, but Eddie Gallagher is a Navy SEAL, and even among his fellow SEALs, he is considered something of a loose cannon and a dangerous man. And among the things that he's accused of are stabbing a defenseless teenage captive to death. He was a sniper, so he was literally picking off schoolgirls and old men as they walked along the streets in Mosul, and he used to like to indiscriminately fire his machine gun at civilian neighborhoods in Mosul, and also indiscriminately fire off rockets just sort of into the places where people were living in Mosul, Iraq. Now, what's become more complex is it turns out that the prosecuting authorities illegally attached a capture device to an email that they sent to Gallagher's defense attorneys, and this piece of malware was discovered by the defense attorneys, and it now looks as though the whole case is going to be a mistrial, and he may end up not going to trial at all.
Wow, just because of a technical error? Wow.
Well, it was more than a technical error. It was an illegal
So it was done on
act.
purpose, I see.
It was done on purpose, but the question remains, why? Did the prosecutors do this because they really wanted to have a better chance of prosecuting him, or was this, in fact, a roundabout way of getting him off? And I can't possibly comment. I don't know the answer to that. But in any case, yeah, it's a mess.
So in Trump's view, and I assume Fox News's view, or the particular Fox News host that suggested this to him, the idea of pardoning military war criminals or people convicted of war crimes, or crimes that would be considered war crimes, do you think that that's the sense of that Trump thinks is a impunity that is deserving of America, that America can and should just engage in any kind of conduct that it wants to because it's America, and there's a symbolism to freeing these specific people?
I think you're right, and I think that this is a logic that long precedes Donald Trump. It's a logic that's been there in American exceptionalism, as it's often called. And it's a circular logic that essentially goes, the United States is the leader of the free world and the leader in the fight for human rights around the world. Therefore, anything the United States does, by definition, cannot be a war crime because the United States is the leader against war crimes in the world. And it's this logic that just goes round and round, and it's almost impossible to enter into this logical circle. And there's a long history of this. So going back as long ago as the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, which people as old as I am will remember, which took place in 1968 and was revealed by Seymour Hersh in 1969. This was a day-long massacre of one little village in Vietnam in the Mekong Delta where U.S. Army people spent the day raping and murdering women and killing everybody in the village. They herded people into houses and then set the houses on fire, and as people came running out, they shot them down. They stopped for lunch and then went back and kept doing this work, if you will. And it later turned out, through important work that was done in the early 2000s by Nick Turse, among other people, that the Army actually knew that My Lai was not a one-off aberration, but in fact it was part of an ongoing strategy that was called Operation Speedy Express, and it caused the deaths of tens of thousands of Vietnamese civilians in South Vietnam, in the part of Vietnam that we were fighting to save. So the point, though, about all of these matters, Really, the point about people like Behenna and Eddie Gallagher is, yes, these war crimes are terrible, and yes, you're absolutely right. The U.S. stance has always been, by definition, we can't commit war crimes. But the truth is that the big criminals, the real criminals, if you will, are the ones that put these members of the armed forces, these low-level criminals, in position to be committing these crimes in the first place.
So, if, how do you explain then the pushback from veterans and even the military against Trump's idea? Is it that in so blatantly wanting to pardon these war criminals, Trump undermines this facade that there is such a thing as military justice? And of course, in individual cases, military justice can and has worked.
I think you're exactly right. And I think we have to recognize that the military itself is a complex society, right? It's a complex set of cultures, oftentimes in conflict with each other, so that the various branches of the military don't get along, dislike each other. And then there is conflict between the actual career military and their civilian bosses in the Pentagon, so that none of this is simple. And none of it is necessarily, or all of it is not necessarily conscious. That is, the military can simultaneously hold in their minds the idea that we are absolutely committed to the Geneva Conventions and the rules and laws of war, which are also called international humanitarian law. We're totally committed to that, and at the same time can use the fact that they believe in their commitment to justify permission to do pretty much anything because of that commitment. You can violate the commitment because you have the commitment. And this is actually, in the world of philosophical ethics, there is a name for this approach, and it's called the dirty hands approach. And the idea is this, that a